All right, the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys how to replace the blast wheel on this 895 shot blaster. And they're pretty much the same as they get bigger, just the blast wheels get bigger, but the concept of how it's affixed and how you set it up is the same. The first thing I always do when changing a blast wheel is I loosen up this control cage clamp. And I don't know if you guys can see in the camera, I'll take my glasses off so I can see. There's actually a notch here and a notch there on the control cage. So I know this machine's blasting right where I want to. So I'm gonna make a mark at the trailing edge and the leading edge. So when I go put my new kit in, I know where to put my control cage. So that's the first thing that I do. And then I'd prefer to work from this side because the shot valve's not in the way. So I'm gonna loosen up this control cage clamp right here. Next, just tap it out of the way. And I'm gonna take this feed spout, it's just a urethane feed spout, and I'm just gonna pull it right out of there. It's just form fitted in there. So I'm gonna move these control cage clamps. I'm gonna pull this control cage out. And the next thing we're gonna do is take this plate off. Now we can see our blast wheel. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a socket, and this is actually a 15/16. And I prefer to tilt the machine back, all the way on its back. And I like to use a hammer to put through the bottom of the machine and jam it in the blast wheel so it can't move while I'm turning it. The motor itself actually has a lock right here, but the pin's very small and you can break that pin, so I really prefer a hammer handle. So I've got this jammed up where I can loosen that right up. Now I've got it loose, just gonna use my fingers. I'm going to lift the blast wheel up and let it come right out the bottom of the machine. So what you guys are going to see when you're inspecting your blast wheel, you can tilt it back and shine a light up underneath it. The shot actually wears a groove through the blast wheel. This is a blast wheel off a much bigger machine, and I can tell you right now that because it's wearing in the back, it usually wears that river in the center, so somebody didn't have their control cage set correctly, and this is just started to wear. The rule of thumb is when 3/4 of this material is worn through, it's time to change your blast wheel. A little better visual of that is this is a blade off a different machine. Can you guys see how it's worn through? It's definitely time to change these blades because it has worn that way down into that metal. This is your blast wheel hub, and when you go to install it, your blast wheel, I want my pins east and west, because on the back of the blast wheel, you want your indentions to line up and fit right into those. Otherwise, it's just gonna free spin. So I'm gonna hold my blast wheel east and west. I'm gonna make sure it's on my hubs, and my pin and my blast wheels together. And then I'm gonna drop my bolt, my blast wheel bolt in there. It's good procedure once you put your blast wheel bolt in there. I take my 15/16 and I hand start it to make sure that I'm not cross-threading anything. And then I'm gonna put my hammer handle back through the bottom of the machine and jam it in there so the blast wheel can't move while I'm tightening it back up. So that's tight. I'm gonna put my plate back on. Next, I'm going to reinstall my control cage. And if you didn't have any marks like I made, you're going to want to set these notches up just like on a clock face. You know, like on a clock face. You want the bottom notch at about 839 and the top at about 1030. So I'm going to line my marks back up, because it was blasting already just right where I wanted it. And I'm going to make sure that this is centered left and right, north and south, east and west. You want to make sure it's centered in that hole so it doesn't grind. And I'm going to put my control cage clamps back over it. Check my center. My clamp back on this side. Take my 13 millimeter and just tighten this up. And the last thing I'm going to do is reinstall my feed spout. If it's real cold outside, or if it's real cold in your shop, for all you guys up north, I'd soak this in hot water for about 5 minutes, and it makes it real pliable and real soft, so it's a lot easier to put back in there. I normally just start at the bottom. A big flathead screwdriver can really help out with this. Just gonna pop it up in there. And then just make sure your top is back up in there as well, over the lip, like I just did. We're back together. Now we're ready to go back to shot blasting.